Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. This is John Catsimatidis. Sunday morning, Thanksgiving weekend. This morning, we have Dr. William J. Parker III, Chief Operating Officer of the East-West Institute. That's a global organization focused on the prevention of conflicts, and they are now focused on Korea. Dr. Parker, good morning on a Sunday morning.
Good morning, Mr. Catsimatidis. Great to be back on your show again.
You're a retired naval officer, and you had a very successful career in the Navy. There are more warships hitting each other. What's going on out there in the Pacific?
Well, there are a few unfortunate situations that have happened out there in the Pacific, and they're being looked at very carefully. But the bottom line is, whether you're driving a Navy ship or you're driving a commercial ship, there are international rules of the road that need to be followed. And in addition to that, there's a certain amount of time that should be placed towards a crew rest to ensure that people are safely operating these vessels. So there are some problems, and they're being focused on very heavily and seriously by the Navy right now.
Now, all these reports, is it because of better reporting? Has stuff like that always happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and it just didn't get reported?
We have had collisions. All large maritime organizations have had collisions of some sort throughout their history at one point or another. But this is a very specific and significant time right now where we've had more in the recent months than we've seen in the past. Part of that is, if you look at the number of ships, 30 years ago, we had about 600 ships in the U.S. Navy. We have about 100 deployed on any given day. Today, we have about 275 ships, and we still have 100 deployed on any given day. So as you can see, the turnaround time to get maintenance done, for the crew to rest, is decreasing significantly while the operations continue at the same tempo.
You recently spoke in Washington about Korea, and you offered that the Korean Peninsula is an opportunity and not simply just a crisis. What can you tell our audience about that?
Well, I do believe it's an opportunity. When you look at it today, the 2017 Korean Peninsula, it offers an opportunity to significantly decrease the suffering of the 25 million people in North Korea. And remember, they're relatives in many cases of those in South Korea. For the Korean people to once again reunite, to have the entire peninsula share in the many blessings of a democracy, which we get to do here in this country. It's an opportunity to once and all eliminate the nuclear weapons from the peninsula, and quite frankly, to serve as an example for the rest of the world. It's an opportunity for China to act the part of a great power or choose to act as a closed nation. It's an opportunity for the U.S. to continue in its role as a global leader. And finally, it's an opportunity for North Koreans to join the world of responsible nations through direct talks between the United States and North Korea.
Now, do the North Koreans realize how well the South Koreans are living?
I think some of them realize that. The reality is they're cut off from the internet in general, unless you're very wealthy or tied to the government. So many of them are not informed in this area. But as you get people coming out of North Korea, you find out that there's more and more information flowing into the country now, and so more and more they realize how bad they have it. And by the way, that ratio is about 40-1 when you look at the gross domestic product comparing the North and the South. I mean, the South is just exponentially better off. To give you an idea or a comparison, if you compare East and West Germany, it was about 5-1 gross domestic product.
Where does China really stand with North Korea? Do they realize we all have a problem?
China faces really a complex scenario in their own backyard. They're concerned with a united Korea that will resemble the affluent and wildly successful democracy of South Korea, which is obviously a close ally to the United States. So they see it, if the unification occurs, or any unification occurs, that there is no longer a geographic buffer between the South Koreans and China. But if China does nothing, they're likely left with a nuclear North Korea, a nuclear Japan, a nuclear South Korea, and possibly combat operations that could go nuclear on the peninsula. So China saw the impact on nations like Turkey when 4 million refugees flooded that country that has 80 million people in it. So a major war on the peninsula would be many times greater, and with the potential of nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons being used and drifting into the Chinese airspace. And even if none of that happens, go ahead, sir.
No, go ahead, finish.
So even if none of that happens, imagine the impact on the economy as the shipping lanes began to be shut down and the logistics grind to a near standstill in the region. So China's tenuous civilian banking system would likely falter and impact not only the remainder of the economy in China, but the global economy.
You also mentioned that, in your opinion, direct talks between the U.S. and North Korea should be happening. Hasn't the United States offered that and they turned it down?
Now, when I say direct talks, I'm talking government to government, and this is an opportunity for the United States to take that leadership role and no longer rely on third parties to negotiate on America's behalf. So the United States, in my opinion, must communicate directly to North Korea through official channels to clearly articulate the options on the table for North Korea. So there must be a clear path to survival for the nation of North Korea and the current regime. And similarly, in my opinion, there must be a clear path to their demise if certain actions are not taken in a specific period of time.
Now, in your talk in Washington, you said this is an opportunity, not just simply a crisis. And I understand you're going to be traveling there in the near future. What do you mean by an opportunity? What should be done, and what would you recommend being done?
Again, I recommend that there is move towards eventually a unification to bring back those two separated countries of one people with one language. I believe that there needs to be a very serious discussion on a way out for the North Korean regime that removes the WMD from the peninsula, and that is non-negotiable. A nuclear North Korea, in my opinion, is just completely non-negotiable for the reasons we've talked about earlier. And so you need to get the nuclear weapons off of the peninsula and at the same time unite the people of Korea. And I think those two things go hand in hand with each other.
Well, in theory, the president of North Korea has said, well, Saddam Hussein gave up his weapons of mass destruction, and Khomeini gave him, not Khomeini, our friend from Libya. And look what happened to them. Why should I give him up?
Sure. And remember, in these cases, there were many opportunities for both Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein to give up those weapons over a long period of time. This has been going on since the 1990s now, and it continues to get worse. The difference is here is the nuclear weapon impact is not just North Korea, but it's North Korea, South Korea. The escalation of nuclear weapons in China, if Japan and South Korea get weapons, is likely, and then Tehran sees that the Koreans got away with this, and so now they start a nuclear program, which means you're going to have proliferation into the Gulf region. So while it's not a perfect situation, the reality is we need to find ways to offer a way out for the North Korean regime and at the same time get those weapons out of the peninsula. It just has to happen.
How bad is the health of the North Koreans? I understand we had a defector last week, and his medical condition shocked everybody. Parasites in his blood, etc., etc.
It is bad. The living conditions are absolutely horrible. As I mentioned earlier, the gross domestic product between a North Korean and South Korean, $1,800 a year on average for a North Korean, 33,000 plus for a South Korean. South Koreans are very healthy. North Koreans aren't, and the only difference is that one country is run by a dictator, and the other country is run by a democracy. And if this isn't an example right here of why we need democracies around the world, I can't imagine what else is.
It's Sunday morning. Americans are drinking their black coffee. What do you want to say to them? Are things cooling down, or it's just a war of words versus a war of nukes?
Well, this is a real threat to not only the security of the peninsula, but the global security and the global economy. But at the same time, you have some very smart people, both in and out of the government, working this issue very hard to try to resolve it. But what we can't do is continue to kick that can down the road.
Well, we've been kicking it down the road for 24 years under 3 different presidents, and it's only gotten worse. I agree with you 110%. William Parker, thank you for joining us this Sunday morning, and have a safe trip whenever you get there. And please call in from Korea if you're there.
Sounds great. Thank you very much for the time today. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you, and thank you for your service to America. This is the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back.